Hey, folks, welcome to another episode of High Power Archery Podcast Series On the Line. What episode are we on, Jonathan? Because I think we're on, 14 now or something like that?
15, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to check later. But we're getting used to doing a lot of these, so it works out well. This week, we're going to cover 7 things that can affect your shot, and we'll go through them one by one. But before we get to any of that, we're at the end of the show, so stay tuned and keep watching till the end of the show. We're going to mention a couple of things, particularly about an event that we have coming up at the shop beginning of July. And also, right now, we're going to mention Jonathan had, he didn't even say hello to everybody yet. This is kind of
Yes.
rude. There he is. See? Anyway, Jonathan was at a shoot this weekend. And guess what? He won. He's making a habit of this. So, Jonathan, why don't you tell him about your experience this week?
Um, yeah, so I couldn't find the nocks I normally use for my 3D arrows. Um, so the shoot went well. I basically what happened was I couldn't find the nocks I normally use for my 3D arrows, and had to use something else. Um, and I was practicing before the shooting, and I was consistently hitting uh quite a bit higher than I normally do. I literally had, if I ranged an animal at say 50 yards, I would have to move my sighting tape down to up to 44. So I was literally, uh, yeah, changing it by 6 yards every shot.
But you figured that out before it
Yes.
got too deep into it, which
Yeah.
is good. Um, Bottom line is he won, but he did the one thing that everyone should do is if you're running your practice. Now, did you notice this in practice or you noticed this during the shoot?
In practice.
Okay. If you notice something in practice that's not right, don't assume it's going to fix itself when the gun goes off and everyone's starting to shoot. I hear a lot of people say things like that in indoor tournaments and outdoor tournaments. It really doesn't matter. And one of the things that people are notorious for saying, and this is why I tell coaches, please do not tell your students this. My girls all know not to act like this. If you see something that's going on when you're in practice right before a shoot starts, that's the time to correct it. Because if you don't correct it then, it's not going to fix itself. And it could have happened for a number of reasons. The bow could have gotten bumped, anything could have gone wrong. But if you think that it's just, oh, I'm just cold, like cold is one thing. And if your grouping's all over the place, it's one. But if your impact point is consistently not where it's supposed to be, adjust it before the shoot starts, or you're going to be losing points right off the bat. Now, Jonathan figured that out. Um, I will say that we set up his bow with precision cut and a lab radar. Uh, but he brings up a good point. He changed his nocks. Some people don't realize that changing your nocks makes a huge impact sometimes on where your shot goes. Now, many will say they can't make that big a deal. Yes, they can. Now, Jonathan, in your case, you went to a different shape, right?
Yep.
So he changed shape on his nocks, and they're even the same brand and all that. But what happens is, and I've seen this a lot, and it impacts you more than not, depending on what your setup is really built like. So if you're using two two nocking points, one served above, one served below, it can impact it a little bit more if you're very, very tight on it. But even especially if you're using one knock, would you use one or two when you're serving your knocking points?
One.
If you're using one, the chances are that it would impact you would be a lot more.
Mhm.
Um, Sometimes I've seen it impact people with two knocking points a lot too. But for the most part, because you have only one, the ability for it to keep the knock straight is a lot harder because now all of a sudden you've got either a bigger gap there or a smaller gap there, depending on the size and the throat of that knock. And what will happen is it doesn't always sit level the way it was when you first put it in. So when you sight in your bow, you're tuning it for the nock to be level travel. Well, when you get a different shaped nock, a different size, fit, whatever, that nock, instead of sitting level, could be sitting like this. It could be sitting like this. Now, in your case, Jonathan, you were hitting higher than you were before with the other nocks, right?
Yes, sir.
So if you go and you check your level, I am willing to bet that arrow going through the burger hole is probably canted like this. It's going up a little bit, which would impact your shot. So what I tell people is this: in particular, you shoot in 3D using a sight tape. If you change anything, check two things immediately. One, check to see if your arrow is now level through the burger hole or not. If it's not, level it. That'll take care of one problem. The other thing you got to check is, and it really depends on the nock, check the speed of the bow.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember what, Jonathan, you were shooting on that one, but what were you, about 280 something when you were shooting that bow?
I think it was like 270 actually, close
So
to that.
say he's shooting 270 and that nock is a tighter fit, he might only be shooting 266. Then again, if it's a different fit or it just fits on the string different, anything interrupts that fit on the string and how it launches can drastically impact. Now, drastically could be just a couple of feet per second, but in terms of a sight tape, a couple of feet per second can make a huge difference. So it'll impact your sight numbers. So if he had checked it, and again, some people don't realize what it is. Was this the first time this sort of thing had ever happened to you like that, Jonathan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, besides the first time I blew up one of my biter knocks and accidentally put it on upside down.
I'm not going to go there. Let's just say anytime that this goes on, you change your nock, you change any part of your setup. If you're relying on a generated sight tape, check your speed, check your level. If the speed is off, you probably got to regenerate that sight tape because all your marks are going to be off. You can play around a little bit and do the intelligent thing, which is what Jonathan did, and do what they call a guesstimation, saying, I'm deliberately going to have to dial it down this much in order to hit, because you would have been hitting high, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he just calculated it out, and instead of like trying to move the tape or something like that, all he said was, if it's 40, I'm shooting it for 34. If it's 50, I'm shooting it for 44. Whatever he's doing. And obviously it worked out because he won. So what shoot was that anyway that you won?
That was one of the Griffin and Howe shoots in Andover, New Jersey.
Okay. So see, he did the thing. He knew exactly what to do. First thing, don't panic. Second thing, use your head. What am I going to do now? And instead of going, oh my God, something's wrong right before shoot starts, he's like, I'm hitting high. I just do this. He didn't panic, and it worked out for the best. So great job doing that, of course. For anyone who wants to know how to do that sort of thing, well, you know where to find him. Just email him, and I'm sure he'll be happy to share his experiences with you.
Anytime.
I've been doing this for so long. The experiences I've had with similar things like that happening to me are, yeah, happened to me when I was a lot younger. But let's just say the my control wasn't as good back then, and the rants I would have to walk away with. Sometimes not even starting a shoot because I'd be off. Well, at the time for me, if I was off 3 yards or something like that, I'd lose my mind, and you could probably hear me from the next county. So at least he handles it better than I did. Now I'm so old, I don't even bother getting upset about anything anymore. Now I'm just like, yeah, okay, it's another day. It's just another thing going to happen. But the reason why we're here, like we said, is to talk over the 7 things that affect your shot. Believe it or not, there are 7 things out there that are not very complicated that can have huge impacts on how your shot impacts. It's a double, but whatever. So a huge effect from your shot comes from the smallest things. Number 1, pressure on the string. What can you tell people about that, Jonathan?
Pressure on the string, as in
face pressure.
Oh yeah. Well, if you have too much face pressure, I can depend. If you're right-handed, you're probably gonna hit high left. If you're right-handed, or left-handed, opposite of that, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it's not fun. Also, you can you can hurt yourself, hurt your face. You can hurt your nose. You can hurt your lip, depending on what's going on with the string.
And if you have a beard like us, this is really uncomfortable if the string happens to take a couple of whiskers with it.
It's not fun.
Oh, is that painful? I've actually come home from a shoot with a line right here missing out of me. So now a lot of people don't realize that they're putting that much pressure on the string, but there are some professional archers who, and again, that's the difference between a professional, intermediate, amateur, doesn't make a difference. When they put the pressure on here, they can actually tell how it feels and if it exactly matches it from every shot to shot. Most amateurs can't do that. The fact that they can do it the same amount every single time from shot to shot makes the shot go the same. Now, if they were to take the pressure off, their shot might go somewhere else. So that's why they can repeat it. But for the average person, we just tell you as little facial contact as possible. So there's a big difference if your your face is on the string, just barely touching it. Like if you ever see a close up picture of Jesse Broadwater when he's shooting, he's got it on right there. But I think if you took a camera and put it up to his face, and I think someone's done that before, he literally is touching it by a mouse's hair, like here. So it looks like he's right up against it, but he's literally barely touching it, if at all. That's something that's really hard to replicate. But if you can do it, it adds to your shot consistency. The whole reason we say careful with this is because at full draw, the string is very, very slack. Actually, if you go to full draw, I'm not saying to do this. Please don't do this. And I know someone's going to say, oh, I went and I did that and I dry fired my bow. Don't do this. But George Wiles, he did a video a
Do
little
not
while back.
do this.
Huh?
Disclaimer: do not do this.
Yeah. George Wiles did a video a little while back. I think he updated it recently or something like that. And what he did was he showed it on a draw board. He did it the safe way. And he actually presses on the string, puts pressure on the string at full draw. Your peep, let's just say you have a tubular peep like most people shoot now. His peep went from going like this. It can go like this from a little bit of pressure. It can go like this. It can go like this. It can go like this. That's called angular applied pressure. If your peep is pointing in a different direction, or you're canting it up, or you're knocking it down, your impact point is going to change. So that's why we say facial pressure is everything. You should probably have somebody film you when you're shooting in general and just see how much pressure you're putting on there. And if you're the type of person that shoots and gets a lot of lefts, all of a sudden, it might be putting in too much. Because if you think about it, when you're up against a string like this, if you're putting pressure, you're actually going like this, which makes the arrow go like this. So that's the facial pressure thing. Jonathan, what would you say is another thing that's a big killer when it comes to consistency that is relatively easy for somebody to fix?
Front hand.
Okay. Your grip, your hand. What can you tell people about their grip or the position of their front hand that it's not a big change. We're not talking about a form change, but something that if they looked at the consistency of that and just added that to their checklist, that might help them out.
Um, Generally, I teach people to try and hold that bow like they're holding an egg. Um, when you grip too much on the bow, it can make the bow do some weird things.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, death gripping it will send your, as a right-handed shooter, will send it left.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it can sometimes send it up. Um, your arm gets tired,
Yeah,
and you're also giving that bow a lot more input than it needs.
that's true.
That is
The number one problem.
the biggest thing. It's a machine. You put a compound bow into a shooting machine. Even if it's not tuned properly, you'll put arrows into the backs of each other.
Yep.
The one part that is imperfect is us. We aren't machines. We can't perfectly do it the same every time. That's the goal, obviously,
Mhm.
um, but we can't do that every time. So
So for the grips, what I tell people is the easiest thing you can do to understand what we're trying to get across is think about it as the front of a rifle sight. For those of you who know how to shoot a rifle, if you're shooting iron sights, and you know that that iron sight pretty much directs where your shot's going to go. Well, canting and torquing do the same thing with your front hand. So the front part of the system cannot move. And the easiest way to describe that is right here. All I got is an Allen wrench. Okay. One of a million that I probably picked up from one of the kits that I got when I got a release or something like that. And if you take your hand like this, okay, put it in the same position you'd be putting if you're gonna hold your bow, which by the way, it should always be 45 degrees with this line coming right here. You'll see some people do it like this. That's what we call pistol gripping it, death gripping it, watching too much Star Trek, you're trying to get the Vulcan death grip on somebody. Don't do that. So John Dudley teaches it as stop like this, and then all you do is put the bow in here. But the trick to knowing if you're doing it right is this: put your hand out, take an Allen wrench, hang it. See how easy that is to see where it's going, and the thumb pad of your hand here is where it should sit. And if you keep this straight, as you can see, I got it straight. Look what happens to my hand. My hand goes into the perfect position where now it's like this, and the center of the grip is going to ride right over here, but it will not go past this part. We always want it in here. We never want it to cross this line. And the other thing that we don't want is when you have it like this, see how this part doesn't touch the bow at all because the bow is going to ride over here. That's the way your hand should be completely relaxed. Your hand's going to naturally fold like that. If you start doing one of these, watch what happens to the wrench. See how I do this? Where's the wrench going? It's tilting that way. And if I actually put pressure on my thumb, look what happens to the wrench. It torques inward, which means my shots are going to go out to the left. If I do this, I can get my shots to the right. So if you practice with an Allen wrench or something like that, they can hang here, hang it in the center of your thumb pad, and just practice holding it straight like this. And if I'm doing that, you'll notice that all of a sudden my elbow has to work out in alignment. And if I turn my elbow like this, so my elbow's pointed down, which is not what you want to do when you're shooting, now all of a sudden when I bring it back, look where it is. So it's wrong. But if I turn my elbow out, boom, boom, it's straight. So how you grip it has a big impact on it. And if you do it properly, it's an easy thing to correct, results in a lot more consistent impact points, and you'll be better off. Now, going with this, because we were talking about alignment, the next thing I'll bring up is body alignment. This is one of those things that people who go from shooting indoor and shooting outdoor standard set distances like FIDA, 50 meter, indoor 18 meter, have less problems with, but they still sometimes have a problem if they weren't taught this to begin with. But 3D shooters get in a lot of problems with this. And George Riles brought this up on another video. We've been talking about it for years. But one of the things that people can do is their body alignment doesn't work out. And one thing that you always want to do is have your hips under your shoulders. And some people will wind up with that out of line. So you can be set up and ready to shoot, but all of a sudden your hips are facing out there somewhere and your arm all of a sudden starts to drift this way. What that does is it tends to make you either pull away, in which case you're now doing this. Basically, you're just lifting your arms up, you're drawing back, and you already know what position is going to feel right for you. If it's not set up properly, you don't do it the same way every time, I will guarantee you run into different impact points every single time. What have you seen when people start getting out of body alignment when they're shooting, Jonathan?
yeah, I've seen the same with the twist.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also see, especially with kids, um, how when they stand there and they're pushing their hip forward,
Yeah.
pulling their shoulders back, that generally that's usually a pretty easy fix. It tells me that either they're getting tired or they're just not used to those muscles properly yet. Um, and so then we just work on it and
Well, one thing that's different about everybody is what their body feels comfortable doing.
mhm.
So remember when we talk about that cookie cutter stuff where they say you have to stand like this and you have to do like that, consistency comes out of repeatability. So if you find that and the blind test is what I tell people to do. I tell people to to go ahead and line themselves up with a target, draw back with their eyes closed, and open their eyes. If they have an alignment problem, meaning that they're lining up their body in a way that it doesn't like to be, where you're forcing something, that alignment when you look down range at the target, all of a sudden your pin or your spot or whatever might be all the way to the left or it might be all the way to the right. If your spot or pin is all the way to the left, you've got to shift your position so that you're more turned in but still lined up. If you do that, that's your body's natural cant. And now when you look and you draw, closing your eyes, open it up, you'll be in the center every time. The problem that happens with people is that they tend to swing. When they do this, they go like this and they're aiming whatever, but what they don't realize is happening is that in order to get the aim to come out right, they're actually doing this. They're closing their arms instead of shifting their body. So instead of doing this like, okay, I'm off center, okay, I'm just going to twist my torso like a turret, they tend to close up, which means all of a sudden your draw is not consistent. Your anchor is probably not going to be consistent. A lot of bad things are going to happen. So if you just find out what your natural need to turn is, you can line yourself up. 3D shooters, especially because you're not shooting on a level surface, you might be shooting with a little bit of a ledge, or you might be pointing down or something like that. It's important that no matter what you do, your body is still centered on the target. So if you're looking at a target that's at an odd angle, that's fine. But if you start doing this thing where I'm trying to twist myself into position, it's not going to work. What you've got to do is you've got to get yourself lined up to the target, draw like you normally do, and then all you're going to do is if the target is further away from you, say it's up. Well, obviously I can't do this, and I'm not going to try to do one of these because it doesn't work, but I have to shorten the way that my body turns. And I'll explain this in a video. Maybe we'll do it when we're at the shop because I can have Jonathan display it for you. You have to shorten it. And George Rouse displays this in a couple of videos he has. But basically, if you're shooting at the European, they had these European games where they were shooting like in burnt out buildings and like they were shooting up towards the fourth floor at a target. Well, when you're doing something like that, shooting up like this, you can lean all you want, you're going to fall over and it's not going to work. And your draw is going to get shorter. You're going to do all kinds of craziness. So what you do is you shorten your body and you twist your body in a way where you can twist away, but you're still maintaining the hip alignment to where it's got to go. But you shorten up everything else because you're doing what they call a twist of your body. That helps with that. We'll explain that. But keeping your body in the comfortable alignment that you always have is the key to consistency, and you've got to do that. The other one, this one is a big one. We discussed the pressure on the string with the face, right? Well, everybody has one of these, and this can become a problem. So when people are shooting, there is a tendency to force themselves to put the nose on the string, which it's cool. You can put your nose on the string. However, if you're shooting static distances again, 50, 20, that's fine. You're not changing your setup. So you're shooting one distance and you're set up so that the line comes back to your nose and it touches the same place every time. But Jonathan, have you ever tried to shoot outdoors, especially at 3D, and try to get your nose to line up perfectly on the string every time? Does anything weird happen when you do that?
Um, honestly, I can't say that I really know this one.
Okay, so I will explain. Do I have a string here? Yes, I do. Amazing. I have one. So This shows you what kind of sad and depraved life I have when in my own room where I'm recording this still. You'll notice I'm still trapped in the same room I was last time because we had a problem with the paint trying to knock me out from that room that we just painted up for it. So I'm still in here, but I got better lighting in here. So studio lights in here now, but I'll be in the other one next time. Anyway, so here's a string. Okay. When you draw the bow back and you're putting your nose on the string and under the alignment, well, what happens is, like we told you, at full draw, the string has the least amount of tension on it as possible. And if you do one of these and you start pressing into it just because you're trying to get a look at a shorter target, well, what's going to happen? You see what I'm doing? I'm pressing down the string. Well, that can affect the way the peep is, like we told you before. But the other thing that happens is you'll see some people who don't want to shoot a very short axle to axle bow. I personally don't, because I hate short axle to axle bows because they don't feel comfortable for me. But most people who hunt want to shoot like a 30-inch or something like that. I shoot with a 39-inch bow for hunting. I mean, really, that's just me. But I've been doing that for years when we had 41-inch bows. But I digress. Anyway, what'll happen is, as you're shooting different distances, what you may not realize is that your sight moves. So now all of a sudden, if you're shooting a further distance, your sight is going to have to come up like this. And if you try to do this where you're trying to look at the target and look through the same peep and actually keep your nose with the same pressure, you're going to increase the bend. You're going to wind up putting more pressure here on the string, and you're going to wind up doing this, and some people start to miss. So one thing that most people who've been in the multiple distance game, I'll call it, have figured out for a long time is that you should really put the pin on the spot. That's always been what I taught. And now it's become more and more popular to line it up first. So line it up, and then you're looking through the peep and you're bringing it to anchor. Now, sometimes the further the distance is, this doesn't line up. Your nose might not touch, or at some distances, your nose is going to wind up touching here when you bring it to your face. Some other places can go here. It's because for different distances, there's different angles. So adjust with your distance. If you're shooting a static distance, 20 or 50, it doesn't make a difference. But if you're shooting varying distances, line it up and then bring it in. George Rouse has a good video about this too. We've been doing it for years. Most people who shoot consistently have to be able to do it. I have always been what they call a static distance shooter, except for when I'm hunting. I don't like shooting 3D tournaments. Sorry, not my thing. One of the reasons was because when I was coming up as a kid, everything was unknown distances. If there's one thing that I hate, is unknown distances. I even cheated when I was a kid and I was hunting, and we didn't have rangefinders back then. What I did, I measured out my distances and put little flags by trees I knew what distance they were. And if you cross between those when the Mr. Deer walked by, I knew how far he was. Was I cheating? No, but I wasn't guessing where he is. I want to be ethical anyway. So it has to do with making sure that you're adjusting the bow to you and you're not adjusting to the bow. Because remember, if you adjust to the bow, it's going to mess you up. Oh, this one is going to be... Actually, no, I'll skip that one. I'll come back to it. I'm going to do the next one. So I want you to do a test. Jonathan, tell me if you've ever seen this happen. Because with kids, I see it all the time. They shoot. It's hard to explain to a younger person to shoot what they call dead expressions, meaning you have zero emotion in your face. You're like this guy has no feeling. What's going on with him? Some people have a different expression on their face every single time they shoot. If you do, where you anchor, believe it or not, is going to change ever so slightly, but it's going to change. And that, believe it or not, the angle will affect your impact. So if you're a smiler, like that, you're at Lancaster shooting on the line, and that annoying camera rolls up to you when you're actually trying to make the shot and you've been shooting clean all this time. Yes, It has happened to people I know. It's annoying. Live with it. But now all of a sudden, you're trying to maintain control. You might crack a smile, or the opposite, if you're having a very bad tournament and shooting, you might be angry and you have a different face of anger, like that, shooting, whatever. Um, Learning to have a pale expression, meaning nothing going on, it's hard. But if you can master it, shoot with what I call without emotion, it'll work out for consistency. Have you ever seen that happen with kids or something like that, where they have one expression on their face when they're shooting, and then all of a sudden they have another expression? Like, why is it not going to the same place all the time?
Yeah, I have. Um,
It happens with everybody.
it does. What's really funny is when the kids are like chewing gum or
Oh
just
yeah.
have a lollipop in their mouth while they're trying to shoot. I'm like, no, get rid of that. It's not going to work. Like, you're literally changing your consistency every time.
Folks, there are certain sports where you'll see people chewing gum, chewing tobacco, whatever. The chewing tobacco is, I don't even want to get into that. But yeah, you cannot do that with consistency in archery. You cannot, well, it's the old saying, you can't shoot and chew bubble gum at the same time. You can't walk and chew bubble gum at the same time. That's basically true. If you do that, it'll change your facial expression every single time. And you'll wonder why all of a sudden, one day to the next, you're either lights out or you're terrible. And in some cases, it happens to do with people being better shooters when they have the bubble gum. I don't know why, but it leads to a lot of inconsistency. So facial expression is everything. Um, so we're almost to the end of the list. So I'm going to go back to one thing now. We discussed nose pressure on the string before. I'm also going to mention nose buttons. So the Beaumarm nose button, Jonathan, do you sell a lot of those in your shop or not?
Not a lot of them. We do have them. We if people ask for them, we'll put them on.
Okay.
Uh,
Kisser buttons. People still get kisser buttons on the string?
a lot, yes.
So the old school thing was kisser buttons, where you would set it up so that it went into the corner of your mouth when you're shooting, give you a consistent anchor point. Okay. For beginners, you could do that. Problem is, remember what we said about facial pressure? How many people do you think are like really sucking that kisser button into the corner of their face? Congratulations, it's going to suck. What also happens is, this is another problem, some kisser buttons have to be put through, you have to take the string off and put them through the string. So you literally have to pull the string through them, and then you can slide it down. I would rather work with one of those kisser buttons, because they're really small ones like that too, than work with the ones that just kind of like slip onto the string and then you got to clamp them on with those metal clamps. First of all, I don't use the metal clamps for anything. Not me. I usually serve them in if I have to put them in. But what happens is there's a little piece of where the two corners of the circle meet, and sometimes that can twist the wrong way, and that could go right into your face and almost pinch you, like, oh, your cheeks are so cute, and it'll pinch you. And when that thing lets go, it hurts so bad. So besides the inconsistency, it can also hurt. But to this day, kisser buttons had been the biggest thing in every pro shop that they sell. I think you probably sell more. The nose button to kisser button, you probably sell 20 kisser buttons for every nose button you sell, I would imagine, because it's always been the prescribed thing. I teach my girls with a kisser button sometimes when they first start, or what I'll do is, there used to be, now way back when I was first coming up, and compounds really weren't a thing back then. But then they became very popular. Now, if I could find what I did with this string, I'd be very happy. Of course, if I can't find where it went now, I'm not going to worry about it. But anyway, we didn't have D loops back then. We usually had a brass knocking point. The arrow sat directly on the string. Oh my, yes. It still sits on the string today, but what we did was we didn't have a loop. So we clicked our release right under the knock on the string. Yes, the release was going around the string. So what would happen would be that would create a lot of friction and sometimes damage the nocks. So what they came up with was called a cushion button. And basically, it was just a little piece of rubber that you slipped through the string the same way, and it went right under the knock. Basically, served the same process of a lower served in knock today that we use. But some people somewhere along the line, probably in the late 90s to early 2000s, figured out that, oh, we're using D loops now. We don't need these things anymore. But they wanted some kind of consistent anchor point without using a kisser button, without the interference. If you ever see videos of Real Wild shooting, one of the most famous feeder shooters ever, one of the winningest guys you'll ever going to see, he had it notoriously on every bow setup he ever used. He had a cushion, and he would line it up so that it was, when he came to full draw, it was sitting right here in the corner of his mouth. He's shooting static distances. It didn't make a difference. And it would just sit right there, and he'd be able to pull back, but it didn't really interfere with his shot because it was nice and round and it was small. But he could anchor it in a small spot. Remember, smaller spot, the smaller you aim, the more consistent you are. The smaller area that you can consistently put something to anchor with, the more consistent it is. So that became a thing for a while. But then we came out with nose buttons. Now, again, people who like to anchor with their nose is more common for static distances. This is why I'm getting into this whole rigmarole with this. Nose buttons are nothing new. Josh Bomar patented something because nobody else ever did. It's brilliant. Like, okay, he improved it because he put little spikes so you can put a smaller point of contact on your nose. But for the most part, we've been doing it for years. We call them, don't get offended by this name, it is pretty disgusting. We called them snotters because we aligned them up so that when we came back to our anchor, they were right on our schnoz, right here. Or in my case, I never lined up here. I always lined up here, but I could find a little gap right there, and that's where I would line mine up with. Then he comes out with the Bomar nose button. Very popular today, probably the most consistent thing. However, some people don't understand if you're shooting static distances, it's cool because you go into the same spot every single time. But what they do is the same thing I just said about when you're aligning up for a shot. If your nose button is set up for, say, 20 yards and you're trying to shoot 60 and you try to keep your nose where that nose button's aligned, you got problems. It's not going to work out right. It's going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to find yourself pushing into that thing, which is why I think he put the spikes on them. So it really hurts the more you put into it because it detects pressure and your shot's going to be off. So the nose button, to me, if you're going to use it for multiple distances, do the same thing we tell you when you're sighting in for multiple distances. Jonathan, what do you sight in for when you're shooting a 3D tournament? Where is your peep set for a 3D tournament? Is it set for, so it's perfectly lined up with 20? Is it perfectly lined up with 50? Where do you set it?
If I know the max range and the shortest range, I will try to put it about halfway.
That's the rule of thumb that you want to live by. Halfway, meaning that it's not crazy uncomfortable to shoot short and it's not crazy uncomfortable to shoot long. And then all you're doing is lining up your peep, lining up your pin, bring it here. And you could still do it with a nose button like that, but you just got to remember that you're going to bring it to you, and wherever the nose button falls is where it stays. Now, if it happens to be drastically different, like you set it up for 20, but you're shooting 100 yards, yeah, then that's probably going to wind up bringing the nose button really, really low on you. And if you try to do one of these things where you're like, oh, but it's not lining up, you're going to see there's a problem. So set for static distance, the nose button is fine. Shooting multiple distances, set the nose button in the same place you would set your peep. Nose button so it's comfortable at a midway distance. Shooting, say, maximum 70 yards, try to set it for like 40, something like that, because it makes it easier to use. And the last thing that we'll go over, and it's related to something else that I want to talk about, is level your sight, people. Level your sights. How many people go and buy a sight? Well, Jonathan, if someone comes to you to the shop to buy a brand new sight and they want to drop a couple $100 on a sight. Do any of them ever ask you to level that sight for them?
Not usually. Not till a few months later. Usually.
Not till a few months later. True. If you're going to spend now, whether it's a $100 site or a $500 site, and these days most of them are closer to the $500 range. If anything's got a third axis on it, you want to level your site. Does it make a difference? Oh, yes, it does. Because if the sight rail is off for any reason, and some bows, like I said, don't even have a third axis. They don't have they have a second axis if you're lucky. Some of them don't have a first. And I'm talking about just regular pin sights that are lined up, whatever. Think of it like this. If your axis is off, then what's going to happen is as you shoot out further, if your axis is like this, right? You don't realize it, but you're shooting a 20-yard pin on, maybe a 30-yard pin on. Anything past that is going to be off. Because if those pins aren't lined up perfectly level and they're like this, what do you think is going to happen? The longer you shoot, the more the pin is going to be sticking out, which means what? You're going to be shooting more towards that side. So you have to level it. So do most people, once they figure this out, or do they ever figure it out? Is the question I got for you, Jonathan. Do these people ever figure out that they got to level their bow?
I don't know if they do. I really don't. I know I do see a lot more people asking to have their second and third axes set as we get into hunting season, as we get into 3D season, because they know, especially around here in this area of PA, New York, New Jersey,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be shooting uphill, you're going to be shooting downhill, all these things, and that affects it. I mean, yes, obviously, the farther back you go, if your second isn't good, it's you're not going to be on left and right.
Yeah.
But your third is also important, very important, because if you're shooting up or down and you try and level your bow when it hasn't been set, or get the bubble right in the middle, it's not going to be right. You'll be canting the bow left, right, whatever.
Mm-hmm. So I guess there's a lot of people, unless you're heavily into this, hunters tend to be more heavily into it than most because it affects them the most. If they're shooting out of a tree stand, if they're shooting, like you said, downhill, it will affect them. And if you say the word third axis, they'll know what it is. For the average person who doesn't know, if you're looking at your sight from the side, okay, say this is your sight. Well, third axis refers to how the cup of the scope, which you'd be looking at from the side angle right here, it can be in or it can be out. And what will happen is when you draw your bulb, and you can only test it really at full draw, and full draw from a human being. A draw board is, you can do it. I don't suggest it. It's a good starting point. Don't get me wrong. You'll be closer than anything else if you can tilt it up and down and all that. Like I have a swinging draw board. I can draw it back and then I can unlock it and I can tilt it all the way up, all the way down at full draw. And I can actually see if the level is changing when it goes up or when it goes down. If your bow is set at level and the bubble's in the middle of the scope and you move it up, following a good easy way to do this is just to drop a straight line from the ceiling, because if you drop a straight line from the ceiling and you put a weight at the end of it, it's always going to hang straight down because of gravity. If you have a multi-pin sight, line up your rack of pins right on that string. And if you have it lined up on that string at full draw and your pins are lined up, bubbles level, and you keep it on that string as you tilt back like this and look at your bubble, and if your bubble moves, your third axis is off. And that's a problem because the further you shoot, the more it's going to move. And why that's an issue is people don't realize, and why you have to do it at full draw, people don't realize that when you're at full draw, the archer can have a really, really big impact on how that bow bends. You don't think that your riser bends, but from pressure, your riser does bend at full draw. So you're like this, the riser can actually bend out of the way a little bit and cause the third axis to move. So we just set it at full draw so that it's stable at full draw. And as long as you do that, you'll be fine. Should you make a big deal about it if you're shooting short distances? Probably not. The further you shoot, and depending on if you're shooting more angles, it's probably a big thing to do. Are there any people, Jonathan, do you think the third axis is more important for than others? I'm just curious about this one because something came up this past hunting season that I noticed, and I kind of made a big deal about it, and a lot of people didn't know. But is there anyone in particular you think was more affected by a third axis?
Then hunters?
Yes.
The only other people I can think of would be 3D shooters.
Okay. In the hunting world, 3D shooters, third axis is a must. You have to set it. But in the hunting world, I get someone wrote to me and said, do I have to shooting my third axis? I hunt out of a blind. Oh, yeah. I'm not hunting in a tree stand. What do I care? I'm like, you're hunting in a blind, right? You got to do it more than anybody else. And this is why. Deer that I shot this year, I set my blind up at the bottom of a hill. He walked around in front of me like he knew where I was. And at 100 yards, which in the thicket in front. And then he decides to walk all the way around behind me. I'm sorry to inform you, Mr. Deer. I know what I'm doing. And I just unzipped the back of my blind. And behold, at 33 yards, he was on the hill. Well, you know what? I'm suddenly finding myself shooting uphill from my blind. I can make that shot. If my third axis was off, I'm doomed. Also, if you've ever seen this before, maybe or maybe not, some blinds open, you can pull the window that you're shooting out of lower, or you can pull the bottom up higher and move the top up open more. That's because it's meant to shoot at different angles. So if you're looking downhill, you open it up more on the bottom. If you're looking uphill, you open it up more on the top. People, shooting out of a blind is not a reason not to do your third axis. You should probably do it more. Especially if you're like me hunting in New York, because you never know where you're going to wind up parking it next to. So do yourself a favor and do it. It's not a big deal if you're shooting static distances in tournaments, 20 and 50. We don't care about the third axis at that point. It really doesn't make a difference. It could, a little bit, theoretically, if you're shooting like Vegas and you're shooting top one day, the first half and bottom the second half. If your third axis is really screwed up, maybe, but not by much. Not something you have to worry about. But I would say, watch your third axis. If you don't understand what it is and your site's capable of it, don't be a stranger to your pro shop. This is why you got to stay friendly with the people at your pro shop, because they'll let you in on things like this. Don't go down the rabbit hole of YouTube looking at different things that'll just show up there and say to yourself, gee, I wonder if I should just loosen up this screw and start screwing around my site. Don't do that. You know how many people I've seen doing that? You know how many people I've seen go ahead and shoot a tournament. I saw something on YouTube yesterday. I'm shooting a tournament today. Really? Did you change something? Well, no. Okay. And then the first shot they get, their site just flies right off. Why? Because they saw that if they can adjust something, then it'll help them shoot better. You got to tighten it back where it was. Ask your guys at the pro shop. Seriously. You've seen horror stories walk into the shop with things that people do, don't you?
All the time.
We have both seen it. It's ugly. Right before we get done with this, I am going to bring up one thing. So there was and it's people. There's certain content produced on YouTube and on Instagram, whatever. Paige Pierce is one of the people who does them, and she is a great source of information for the community. However, if you do not understand what she is saying, things like she is teaching are not open to interpretation. Ask somebody who knows. So, one of the things she was teaching was taking your first axis bar, the rail, once you've already leveled it to your scope, right? Scope and this now a level. And what she said was, and this is completely true, you can, if you get fatigued on your hand by trying to keep your bow level, you can find out what the natural cant of your bow is, and then just move the whole thing, right? The bar and the scope as one piece, because one is slave to the other, and you can tilt it so that it becomes level in your hand when your hand is comfortable. This is absolutely true. It works. I've done it. It feels a lot more comfortable because you're not twisting your wrist. However, it does not work, in my experience, for shooting anything outside of static distances. So if you set up your bow to shoot only 50-meter, fine. It'll work. It's comfortable. My feeder bow is set up that way. My first access is actually a little bit to this side. And when my hand is relaxed, it actually levels out. Fine. Can do the same thing at 20. Fine. It is not meant for doing it at multiple distances. Jonathan, can you think of any reason why you want to do something like that at multiple distances? Why you wouldn't anyway?
Well, we already mentioned your second is off.
Yeah.
You're going back farther.
Mm-hmm.
If your bottom pin is to the left of your top pin,
Mm-hmm.
guess what? You're going to be hitting right.
Yeah.
And it will get so frustrating because you won't see the micro adjustment of that axis, and it'll all look the same to you.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, you'll be like, well, my 20 is on dead center, but my 30, 40, 50, 60 is off to the right. Do I move my sight to the right? No, because now your 20 is going to be left.
So, like we said, everything in archery is about repeatability. If you can repeat it, it'll be consistent. But it doesn't work, in my experience, for multiple distances because you've set it so that you're hitting whatever your mark is at that static distance. If you start playing around with a longer distance, it's going to be off by some way. And maybe not off for the reasons you think. It could be off because, well, A, you're sliding your sight down. It's definitely going to throw you off. But the other reason is you set your sight to hit at that distance. What you don't realize is that at further distances, right, instead of your bow, say your bow is tilted like this. It's like this to make it comfortable for you. That's cool. You shoot, you're consistent, it's going to wind up hitting same place every time if you shoot consistently. Now, if you shoot at a further distance, now all of a sudden you're going from like this and say you're lifting up your bow like that so the sight takes up for it. And you can see when I'm doing this, my bow is going up and it's actually changing degree to where it's doing that. Well, what happens is that's now changed the degree to which there's a fall of the arrow when it's on the rest. It actually starts to roll off. So that degree of pressure when it's rolling off is going to change. And you're going to wind up with a problem. So we will say, no problem doing that sort of thing if you're doing it at static distances. If you're doing it at random distances, you might have problems. Better to live with a little bit of fatigue, but know that your arrow is straight and the pressures and the forces on that arrow on the rest are the same the whole way. You just have to train yourself to have a little bit more endurance than most. Easier said than done, but you can. Your wrist will get stronger, whatever, you'll get used to doing it. It'll become second nature to you. It's when people actually start nitpicking stuff that they're doing and they're like, oh, I don't feel good doing this. That must be a problem, that they wind up with a problem. So just because you see something on YouTube, if you don't understand it, ask somebody first. I had a guy, I don't know if I should mention this or not. Let's just say he went to tack with a lot of arrows. He had done that little thing. Tack is not the place to do that. Dude shooting 40 yards or 100 and something yards. He lost almost 2 dozen arrows that day. Oh, he was cool at like 40 and 20 and even 50. But when he started doing those bombs, didn't work out. So I'm not going to say how many arrows he started with. It was over 2 dozen. How many arrows he ended with? Not as many as you think. But he went based on a misinterpretation of something that he saw online. And then he's asking me, what in the heck happened? I gave him a simple answer. I said, you didn't go to the shop and ask somebody about that, did you? And you sure did not call me. Yeah, but I just emailed you now. I'm like, after the fact, dude. It's not going to work that way. I said, but Jonathan, here's the worst part of it. They're all ultra view arrows he had.
Oh.
Remember we joked about that in the last episode? Like, if you're going to go there, you don't want to go with a stack of ultra views. It's like he listened to the podcast, went, bought a ton of ultra views, and let me just go and lose them all over there. So suffice it to say, he's not going to do that again. I don't think he'll ever look at anything on YouTube again, to be honest with you. Not without asking me, or in this case, you're about 4 hours away from him. I think he's going to drive to your shop to ask you if he can't get in touch with me. I think he could take a cab to your shop. It'd be cheaper than the amount that he lost for the arrows that day. So, yeah, things happen, folks. That's all I can say. So as we start to wind this one up, because we're right almost at the 1 hour time limit, a couple of things we'll go over. One, next event at the shop will be July 11th. And we're definitely going to do, well, we haven't really decided what we're going to do that day, but we're definitely going to do some of the lab radar stuff and some more precision cut, because that doesn't take that long to do. We have 2 lab radars now, so we can do it even faster. If you haven't had it done, it's free. Come down. We'll make the full announcement about a week before, 2 weeks before, so that, and we're getting kind of 2 weeks before as it is, so that you can see it for yourself and make the arrangements to come down. Like I said, it's a great time. Live music on a Saturday and all that across the street. It's wonderful. You can get to come down, hang out with me and Jonathan, the whole crew over there. The cat will welcome you. He's a friendly cat.
Romeo will welcome you as well. And maybe one of my dogs.
Okay. So it could be, a whole Disney cat and dog fest. I don't know, but it's fun either way. We're also trying to work out some details on doing a seminar down there or something like that, where that's in the works. As you can see, I've got better lighting, but it's not really suitable for a live stream because I don't have my direct cable coming to my laptop or anything like that yet. With any luck, now that I've painted the studio and the floor is finished in the studio, the noxious aroma of the paint in the studio will be gone by the next time I try to record here. This way, I don't have to record Jonathan, and then he'll suddenly see me passing out in the middle of a broadcast. That would suck. And then we'll be able to do live streams to both YouTube and Facebook. So that's coming soon. I'm not setting any deadlines for me. I'm just trying to keep it flowing. We're waiting for the challenge coins to show up. This way, like I said, that's another opportunity you got. We don't sell them. I give them away to some people when I see them. So if you want an opportunity to get one of those, then come down, see us in person. And I might have a challenge coin with your name on it. Never know. But aside from that, it's always great to get together on here and do this. I have a couple of other podcast episodes that I actually just finished, like 3 of them. Nice. And I'm going to live stream, upstream them, upload them, whatever you want to call it. One of them has video, the other 2 don't, because I was using this new platform that we have. Seems to be working out well. People seem to like it. Remember that whenever we do this, we have little shorts that appear on Instagram, that appear on Facebook. So you get little snippets, whatever. Tell people about it if you think that it can be of help to them. And as always, if you have a question for us, contact us. We're happy to answer them. Our information is always in the show notes. There's also summaries in the show notes. There's all kinds of things in there. And we'd be happy to see you. What we're going to do first of all, I've already ordered a shirt for Jonathan. I'd like to know when that shows up. So people, if you're watching this, you know who you are because I ordered the shirt from you. Please don't sit on your laurels. Get that thing done. Whatever. But we may actually have some podcast merch and stuff like that. I don't make money on merch when I set up these things. So all it does is pay for production costs and stuff like that. I may do it through a third party who takes care of everything, and then I have nothing to do with it except for allowing them to use a logo, but I'm working that out. So if you're really into the podcast and you want to have some podcast merchandise, whatever, we'll make it available in the next couple of weeks. Tell us what you think of the show. We're glad that you're here for another episode. Jonathan, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, glad you guys stayed around. Appreciate you guys watching, listening. As far as I know, the 11th is pretty solid. So if you would like to come out, just so we know how many people are going to show up, hit Angel up, hit me up, call us the archery shop, and just let us know you're going to come out, and so we have an idea of who's going to be there.
And I'll put a link for the shop, their website, their phone number, and all that in this episode's notes. His Instagram's always there. My email's always there. My Instagram, my Facebook, and all that. So if you have a question, feel free to ask. Lord knows I have enough time in my hands where I will answer it. It may not be right away, but I'll try. So we're through another one, folks. As always, it's great to be with you again. We'll be here again next week. We try to publish on Wednesdays if possible. I think I've hit the Wednesday mark for the last 10 shows, except for sometimes it gets delayed a little bit. But yeah, so like always, it's two things. It's never goodbye. It's until we meet again or see you again. And since now you can actually see us, until we see you again. And remember, be safe in everything that you do. Because like Greg Poole says, we don't want to read about you in the news. We want to hear from you. So until then, we'll see you on the next episode. And thanks for watching.